Since 2004, Tony Perkins and Family Research Council have championed pastors for the transformation of America. In a recent article about the upcoming elections, the New York Times reported the Family Research Council has already activated its network of 15,000 churches, half of which have culture impact ministries that organize congregations to be more socially and civically engaged. Some of the organizers called themselves the Watchmen on the Wall, a reference to guards who looked over Jerusalem from the book of Isaiah.
When God saw what would happen to Jerusalem, which was the center and the heart of Israel, his people, he said, I will set watchmen on your walls of Jerusalem who will never keep theirs, who will never be silent day or night, but will lift their voice. And I said, as Jerusalem was the center of Israel as a nation, so Washington is the center of America. And so God will be setting spiritual watchmen on the walls of Washington.
It all started when Tony was elected as a Louisiana state legislator and quickly became the leading voice for pro-family policies. As important measures impacting families, churches, and essential freedoms were being debated, there were frequently full-time lobbyists paid by pro-abortion and pro-homosexual working to undermine and to influence the legislature. There were no lobbyists speaking on behalf of the families and churches of the state. To counteract the one-sided lobbying effort, Tony founded a family policy council, the Louisiana Family Forum, and he began inviting pastors to the Capitol for briefings with lawmakers. And it worked. Louisiana passed the nation's first covenant marriage law and experienced a resurgence of conservative values. When called to lead FRC in Washington, D.C., Tony believed God wanted him to do the same thing on a national level. So, in 2004, FRC hosted the first Watchmen on the Wall conference on Capitol Hill. The Watchmen Pastors Network was born just in time to fight for marriage between a man and a woman in states across the country. When it was all said and done, over 30 states had traditional marriage amendments in place. The most publicized battle for marriage protection amendments took place in California with Proposition 8.
Tony, your video of Dave and Tanya Parker from Lexington, Massachusetts, the single most pronounced issue that caused us to win Prop 8 was the issue as it relates to the impact upon public schools and upon children and the loss of parental rights. The key poster child for that became Dave and Tanya Parker and a video that Tony had done that we got circulated so widely. It had, the last few days for the election, over 700,000 hits on that one video alone. That alone could have tipped, and probably likely did tip it, in the favor of truth.
Unfortunately, judges, not the voters, had the final word on marriage. In 2015, the Supreme Court, in a 5-4 decision, threw the biblical definition of marriage under the bus.
Just moments ago, the Supreme Court and this landmark ruling, the court making same-sex marriage legal in this country across every state in this nation.
Court-created same-sex marriage not only became the law of the land, the court ruling soon became a license to harass, fine, fire, court-martial, and even jail people of faith who disagree. Watchmen pastors and millions of Christians have learned a valuable lesson. It really matters who gets appointed and confirmed to sit on the courts, especially the U.S. Supreme Court, because their decisions have a domino effect in the culture.
The Houston Five, the pastors in Texas that stood up against the mayor, I believe is a turning point for the church in America. And since then, literally dozens of cities across the nation have followed their example and have stood up for religious freedom, the freedom to believe and live one's life according to those beliefs.
No matter what part of the country, there is nobody off the table right now that is not being assaulted by this agenda.
Everybody, Spanish, African American, every nationality has to be together in unity.
If every pastor in this country would stand up, and then every Christian in this country would stand up, things would change very quickly.
The greatest team effort to date was the election of 2016. In Washington, D.C., Tony and FRC worked closely with other Christian organizations to help craft the most conservative policy platform in recent decades.
If there's one person's stamp on this platform, I think it's Tony Perkins.
And Tony was the first FRC president to speak at the GOP convention.
Tonight we focus on making America one again.
Then Watchmen pastors in battleground states networked together to get out record numbers of evangelicals to vote their values in 2016.
You cannot win the presidency, at least in this day and time, without winning the big three. The big three, Ohio and Florida and North Carolina. And in Ohio, we did 9 pastor events, connecting with 1,600 pastors, distributing 800,000 voter guides in the churches, and Trump won by nearly 8% in that state.
80 pastor briefings were held in 15 states. 14 regional and 1 national culture impact training events were held. And over 6 million voter guides were distributed. 1/3 of all events were focused on ethnic pastors. The result?
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
Huge turning point for our country.
The politicians have run Washington for far too long. If you gave in here, then they wanted this, and if you gave in that, they wanted something else. And
I'm just excited for a new start.
At the inauguration, Fox commentator Lou Dobbs had a question for Tony.
Tony Perkins. Tony, great to have you with us. Your thoughts as a pastor yourself and one of the leading evangelicals in the country, to hear that this president believes this nation, all of us, will be protected by God. Did you ever think you would hear that from a president of the United States ever again?
Elections have consequences. Whatever you think of the president personally, consider his accomplishments that have advanced Christian values. This president has taken action on causes that many Christians have prayed about for decades. For 15 years, a growing network of now 40,000 Watchmen pastors all across America has become a movement that continues to gain momentum and make a positive difference. We sincerely hope you will prayerfully consider joining with us as we stand for faith, family, and freedom in America and around the world.
This is an opportunity for Christians across America to declare that regardless of what threats we may face collectively or individually, we intend to stand for Jesus Christ and to defend religious freedom here in America.